Psst, psst. Hi! Due to the way YouTube works, I want to make a quick announcement before this video. If you like this video, please consider hitting the like button or leaving a small comment. It really helps. If you feel like helping even more, you can check my Patreon or Ko-fi accounts. All the links are in the description box. Thank you! Greetings! I am back today with the second page of the Daniel Smith color chart, the dot card for swatching. This page is mostly the purples, the blues, and the greens, so I'll be proceeding exactly like I did last time. I have my sheet already made. Just to quickly explain the sheet, this is cellulose paper, and I've taped off every section with super thin painter's tape, so the blue lines are the tape. The black line is a Sharpie pen, so I can see the opacity of the color, and at the bottom I've written the name of the color and the code of the color according to Daniel Smith. I haven't put the pigment information on the sheets, in part because it is not on this sheet, so I would have to manually check for every single color. And also, my chart is a bit old, and I know some colors have new recipes possibly since then, so I'm afraid that if I write the current pigment code of a color on this, it's not gonna be exactly the color I had on my chart. So that's just a quick setup. So I won't wait any longer and I will start swatching the colors. I am using a Royal and Langnickel brush. It's the brush I always use in my videos for swatching. The very first color of this sheet is Amethyst Genuine. It is a Primatech color, which means that it's a color that's been made with genuine amethyst. These Primatech colors are usually pricier than the regular colors, because they're made with materials that cost a bit more. I think the most interesting feature of this color, this Amethyst Genuine, is that it has a bit of a sparkle in it from the mineral itself. It doesn't show a lot when it's wet, but as it dries you can sort of see a very faint shimmer sparkle effect in the color, which is kind of neat and unique. The second color is one of my favorite personally. It's Carbazole Violet, also named Dioxazine Purple by other brands. I know that Winsor Newton call theirs Winsor Violet, I think, but it's all the same. Super dark, super deep, very nice violet color. It's one of my favorite because it is so intense that you know you're getting something that you can use much lighter, but that you can also use to create darker colors. And I like having this possibility to create something that is very dark, because I can always have it lighter by using water, but having it darker can be a bit of a problem. The next color is Cobalt Blue Violet. If I think on the previous cobalt colors I've tried on the other sheet, this one definitely re-wets more easily. And it has a lot more color payoff than the others, so I wonder if it's a genuine cobalt or if it's a color mix, but I will have to check that out later because I don't have that information handy. It's a very nice color. The next color is Moonglow. Moonglow is one of those unique proprietary Daniel Smith mixes. It's a mix of 2 or 3 pigments. It's a mix of more than one pigment, and it has this quality that when it dries, with the granulation, you get to see the different colors poke through the mix a bit, which is very, very nice. I will try to make it a good indicative swatch of color by using somewhat of a juicy application. It is fairly similar to the color right after that, over here, which is Shadow Violet. It follows the same idea of mixing pigments to create a new color that has different properties depending on the water application or saturation of the color. I will also try to make this one a good juicy swatch so we can possibly see the way the granulation happens and creates an effect in the color. Someone suggested that I pre-wet the dots on the chart. It is a really good idea, but I am a bit worried that I would make a mess. Like, I often pass my hand over the dots, and if they are sort of wet in advance, there's a likely chance I will sort of make a big mess of it all. So I will keep to scrubbing at them with this brush. And I apologize if that's a bother for you. The next color is Sugilite Genuine. It is also a Primatech pigment. The Primatech pigments are fairly easy to find out about because they all have this sort of genuine suffix. Like, it's always something genuine. That's always a good indicator that it's a Primatech color. I do believe that this one also has a bit of a sparkly effect, like Amethyst had. I think it's more present in this one than it was in the Amethyst color. I know that some people are unsure whether these paints actually use real stones or if it's sort of a mix on Daniel Smith's part. I don't have any information in that sense, so I can't really say. I don't really mind one way or the other. I still like their colors and it doesn't really bother me. Some of their colors, some of their Primatics, you can tell that it's made from the stone, like the lapis-lazuli color. It is so unimpressive and so exactly like what you'd get when you use sort of the grayish ash blue lapis-lazuli pigment. But other colors like garnet or the amazonite have raised some questioning because they are a bit too intense, and some people are not sure that it's entirely just the stone. There are some questions about whether or not these paints include an extra. Let's just put it that way. Also, there were some inquiries about some of the colors that are supposedly mined in some places where there is no mine, and I don't really know, and to some extent I don't really care. I'm sorry. I like the color, I like the color, I don't like the color, I don't like the color. This is as far as my my implication goes. The next color is also a Primatic. It is Kyanite Genuine. It is more of a bluish color than a purplish color, but I think we are getting into the blue. So as you can see, so far the Primatic colors I've had on this sheet, they read really well. Like, not an issue with the Amethyst or the Sugilite, and the Kyanite. They all release pigment easily, so not a problem. The actual difficulty with these dot cards is scrubbing the paint, but not scrubbing the paper to the point where it will sort of start peeling and you end up with bits of paper in your swatch. Okay, next color is Indigo. Most indigo colors nowadays are a mix of pigment. They are not the original indigo, in part because the original indigo is a color that is not light fast, and it will fade, I think, over time. So most paint manufacturers still offer something that is labeled indigo, but it's usually going to be a mix of a blue and a black color. After that, we have Mayan Dark Blue. Daniel Smith has two Mayan Blue colors. There is Mayan Blue Genuine, which we will see over here. This one. That one is part of the Primatic range, but they also have Mayan Blue Genuine, not Mayan Blue Genuine, Mayan Dark Blue, yeah. It's a different color than the Mayan Blue Genuine, and it's not part of the Primatic range. The next color is one of my favorites. It's Indanthrone Blue. Again, a bit like for Carbazole Violet, it's a color that I really enjoy because it is really intense. And I like the colors to be intense to begin with, because that means that if I need a black, I can mix it with these colors if I have the proper match. But it will be like a dark neutral color, it won't be a gray. So if I need some super dark neutral color, I prefer to mix it from super dark intense colors. Also, the Carbazole Violet and the Indanthrone Blue are single pigments, so you're not introducing all sorts of things in your mixes. Our first color in the second row is another Primatic color, the Sodalite Genuine. I think a lot of the Primatic colors are in the blue, green, and sort of brown-black colors. On the first page, there were, I don't know if we had it, but I know there is Garnet and Rhodonite Genuine. I know we had the Rhodonite, but I don't remember seeing the Garnet there. But these are the reddish, pinkish Primatic that I can think of at the moment. But there are a lot more blues and greens. I think the Sodalite might be another one of the sparkly colors. It's a bit hard to say when it's wet. It's kind of a bluish, it's a muted blue color. Again, super easy to re-wet. As you can see, no problem there, and the color has a really good payoff. After that, it's yet another Primatech. It's Lapis Lazuli Genuine. This one is a bit of an odd color. From what I've seen of most people who've used this color, the paint doesn't really live up to the swatch that Daniel Smith makes of the same paint. This one I will pre-wet it a bit and leave it to soften because it is a more difficult color. I don't think it is worth getting. I would have a hard time justifying buying this paint, first of all because it's a Series 5, so super duper pricey, and I don't really find a lot of uses for it. This paint doesn't have the same payoff as ultramarine, and I am not even a big fan of ultramarine to begin with. I love that I can test it on the dot card, but I don't feel a strong desire to purchase it. Whereas some other colors like the amethyst or the sodalite or the sugilite, kyanite, these I really like, and these I would purchase because the color is nice, the effect, the slight sparkle is really neat, and I like how the color looks. So this one we'll see, but I do believe it's going to be quite gray and quite faded compared to the ultramarines. I'll move on, I'll skip this one for now, and I'll go back and I'll go to Smalt Genuine. Seems fairly hard to re-wet as well, so perhaps I should let this one soften a bit as well. I'll do that. So this is just a bunch of hard to re-wet colors. There's the Lapis Lazuli, Smalt, Ultramarine Blue, French Ultramarine, Cobalt Blue, and only when I get to the phthalo blue green shade over here do I return to something that is quite easy to re-wet. So I will try to pre-wet all of these. Just because I know what to expect with these. I've used these colors before. They are not the easiest to work from the dry color. Can I get something out of this Smalt Genuine? It's not super impressive. Perhaps this is... Perhaps I should just let it sit for a bit more. It's not a very big dot either, so... Oh yeah, to come back on the dot thing, in the first video I mentioned that the dots look like someone went, you know, boop 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 with a tube, and apparently that's the way these are made, so... so I got that right at least. A lot of you have commented on the first video that these are made by perhaps an artist that is paid for that, and some others have said that it's the employees at the Daniel Smith store that like make these. So I don't really know what the deal is exactly, but the fact that they look handmade is due to the fact that they are handmade and not made by like perhaps a dotting machine or something. I don't know how schminkes are made. Perhaps they are made by hand as well, but there's definitely a difference in look. Okay, so this color, as you can see, is sort of very light, and I doubt I'll be able to get a better color payload, especially because the dot is not super big, and I can see why. I mean, it's a pricey color, so it's not the one you want to be too generous with. But yeah, it's a bit... It's very much unlike the Carbazole Violet, where you get this super dark, intense color that you can lighten a lot. This one is already pretty light, so I am not sure what I would use this for. Smalt Genuine is sort of disappearing before my eyes, and I don't see a lot of color coming up either. Like, I can see that the dot is shrinking, but it doesn't release a lot of color. Okay, the ultramarine blue. This color is in every set and in almost every color recommendation ever. I am not super duper fond of it. Not because the color is nice. My issue is not with the color itself, it's more with the fact that I have the French ultramarine version and I find it really hard to wet, and that it doesn't have a very high color. I am not sure about the term here, but like when you want to mix French ultramarine and burnt sienna to get gray, you sort of have to put twice the amount of blue than you have to put of brown to get gray. So like the color is strong, but it's gonna get overpowered fairly easily. And the French version is a bit harder to wet, and that just bothers me. One ultramarine that is pretty magical is the Handmade Ultramarine Blue by Dan from Penholder Arts. Penholder Art? Yeah, Penholder Art. He makes this ultramarine blue that is super intense and super bright and very easy to wet, so that one is really worth getting. The other ones, well, since I'm not a fan of this color, I always try to pick something else when I can choose, but it's in all the sets, so sooner or later you're stuck with way more ultramarine than you will ever need in your life. Also, this is a personal thing, but I really don't like this color for skies. I prefer to use something with a bit more yellow in it. Just a personal preference, of course, but yeah. Okay, next one. Possibly the last one. Super hard to re-wet for now. That's not so bad. Cobalt blue. It's a really pretty color. It should granulate nicely, because usually the cobalts degranulate. So I will try to make it happen. Another thing of note is that ultramarine, I can see why ultramarine is in most of everything, because it's fairly inexpensive. Like if you look over here, the ultramarine blue is a series 1, so the lowest price. The French ultramarine is a series 2, so a bit pricier, and cobalt blue is a series 3, so a bit pricier still. If you want to start with something that is more affordable, of course the ultramarine blue is going to be more appealing. I'm thinking that I should perhaps eventually, like if I ever finish my insane stack of all French or ultramarine blues, I think I would like to try the regular ultramarine blue instead of the French one. Okay, next one is Phthalo Blue Green Shade. Another one of those super intense, super deep colors. Transparent. Most of these super intense, super deep colors, perhaps you're thinking that the colors, they don't look natural, but there are not that many colors that, if you're doing from reference or something that is more realistic, there's not a lot of these colors that you will use straight from the swatch, you know, straight from the pan, straight from the palette. Most of these you will mix, and that's when having like colors with the super clean, intense load of pigment will be great to mix together, because you won't get any weird surprises from mixing something that is opaque into a mix, or you know, you get this blue, you know, that if you mix this one with this other transparent orange, you get a gray. So if you want to paint gray, well, you can just mix these two and have this super intense gray that has a lot of personality. Okay, next one is Verditor Blue. It is a semi-transparent color. I am not super familiar with this color, so I don't I don't really have much to say. It looks like it has some opacity to it, so I don't know if they mixed it with a white pigment to get this. After that we have the phthalo blue red shade. So we had the green shade here, and over here we get the red shade. I love the phthalo blues. They are so easy to pick up from a dry color. You won't be able to lift these very well because they are very staining colors, but if you have them dry on your palette, you won't struggle for a very long time before you can release some color and get to work. So this one is definitely redder than this one. And the very last color for this row is Prussian blue. It is one of my favorite blues, and I was so super excited when I started making my own paints to be able to make my own Prussian blue. But then the excitement faded when I realized that this color is kind of hard to work, and it requires a lot of elbow grease, to get to a finely mold color that will stay on the paper. Like I had a bit of a struggle at first to mix this into a proper mix I was happy with, and it's kind of so much work, and this is just a series 1 color, so I'm just tempted to, you know, simply buy it because it spares me the work and I don't always have the time to work so long on a color. So it's a color that I really like, but I don't mix so often just because it's so much work, and it's a fairly easy to get color, so yeah. The third column starts with Mayan Blue Genuine. Oh, I also wanted to say, I said that the Sodalite had some sparkles in it, but it doesn't. So far the sparkly colors are the Amethyst, the Sugilite, and the Kyanite. This one is not sparkly. Sodalite is not sparkly. Okay, so yeah, Mayan Blue Genuine. Bit more difficult to re-wet than the dark blue was. That was Peko. She's back for some more commentary, guys. Next color is Cerulean Blue. This is one of the colors that I prefer for skies. This one is the genuine thing, so I will just... Well, is it... Yeah, it is. It seems to be the genuine thing, so I will just leave it to pre-wet a bit, and I will do the Cerulean Blue Chromium. It's not a hue, so I am not sure what the the actual difference between these two is, but perhaps it's just in the color. We'll see when I swatch this cerulean blue. But the chromium is much easier to wet than the regular cerulean blue. This is the color I prefer for sky, personally. I don't know if I've already said that, but when I want to color a sky, I prefer to go with one of these more cooler colors, like more yellow colors. Perhaps it's because the skies over here are more of that color, but okay. Has that softened a bit? It's still pretty unyieldy. It's definitely not as intense as the chromium. Then we have manganese blue hue. There is no longer any genuine manganese blue that is made, with perhaps the exception of the artisanal watercolor that, again, Dan at Penholder Art makes from the true manganese pigment. But I think the supplies of real manganese pigment are running out. So the real manganese blue is a color that will not be available for long. Old Holland used to make it, but they've stopped recently. And they were the only commercial company really making it. So now there's only Dan's efforts for as long as he can get the pigment, I guess. Which is kind of a shame because real manganese blue is a very nice color. It is super granulating and super nice greenish blue. Okay, next color is cobalt teal blue. It is one of those colors that a lot of artists really like, and I am one of them. I really enjoy this color. I'm a bit sad that it's a cobalt. So it is fairly opaque, and kind of like cobalt is a pigment with toxicity, so there are some factors in there, like there could be some effects either on the wildlife or on health, depending. Unless you eat a lot of paint, I think it's mostly safe for humans, but they still gotta warn you that it's a toxic thing. It's so that, you know, if, for example, your kid or your pet decided to eat the whole tube of thing, to inquire about it, just to... Well, I think I would inquire regardless of the toxicity of the color, but yeah, these paints come with a bit of an issue with the toxicity. For me, the issue is mostly in disposal. If I were to mix these paints myself, like have the pigments, then I would be a lot more worried, because I know that then the pigment and the particles could get airborne, and I don't want my cats to inhale that stuff. But if the paint is already like mixed, I am not all that worried personally. I think the only paint company that I've seen try to come close to these super nice aqua teal colors is Holbein. Like, they have mixes that try to get close to this color, but it's, if you want a single pigment version, I think the only way you can get it is through this cobalt teal. There's the Amazonite Genuine that we'll see here that is really decent, and it is transparent, so that's a pretty great thing, but it's not exactly the same color as cobalt teal. Okay, next one is Fuchsite Genuine, and I know for sure that this one is a sparkly color. fun story. Fun. You tell me if it's fun or not. But when I first got back into painting like many years ago, I had like spurs of interest, but due to brain stuff, it would never last super long. But I was like, hey, I want to give this a shot again, and I went to the art supply stores, but I didn't know anything back then. I didn't do any research. I really had some superficial knowledge of all this stuff. I just know that I liked watercolor, so I got there and I saw the huge display of Daniel Smith, and I was like, whoa, okay, how do I pick my colors from there? So I look at the colors, and I was looking for, you know, a minty green, like light green color. And I don't see any, but I see this fuchsite thing, and I have no idea what fuchsite is then. So I'm like, this is the color I want. It's kind of pricey, but not too much. I mean, this is a Series 2 color, so it's not, you know, it's not bad. So I'm like, okay, I really like this color. I'm gonna get this. So I get this, I get home, and I try the color, and I'm like, why is it sparkly? What's going on? Why is this thing sparkly? So I barely used it because I didn't know what to do with the sparkles. It was so unexpected that it really threw me off. And I was like, oh no, what am I supposed to do with, why is it sparkly? It didn't say it was sparkly, and I had no idea that like the Primatech colors were a thing. So it made me laugh for a bit there. So I guess my oldest Primatech color is Fuchsite Genuine because I bought it without knowing what it was. But it's quite nice, so I'm glad I have it. The next color is Phthalo Turquoise, which is a color I hadn't tried until very recently. And I think it's kind of weird because I think I bought like Ultramarine Turquoise, and I sort of felt that it was very similar to Phthalo Turquoise. So I bought Ultramarine Turquoise, and I was like, oh, I don't need Phthalo Turquoise, but it is very nice. And unlike many other colors of this kind of idea, because this is phthalo blue and phthalo green mixed together, but instead of being phthalo blue and phthalo green blue shade, it's phthalo green yellow shade, I think. So it's a bit different than other brands. I think M. Graham's like turquoise color like that is phthalo green blue shade and one of the phthalo blues. So it's sort of different and unique. And we'll be able to compare it with the ultramarine turquoise just now, because that's the next color. Like all this paint stuff, like all the knowledge of what's granulating, what is not, what does it mean, all this stuff, it's not something you just acquire like just like that. You have to, it's a process. So like when I bought my ultramarine turquoise, I wasn't really paying attention to the fact that it's necessarily granulating because it has ultramarine blue in it, I think. And I was like, well, these two colors, they look really similar in the swatches, so I'm gonna get, I don't know why I got one instead of the other, I don't remember, but now I can see, now that my knowledge keeps expanding, I can see that there's a kind of a different reason to get one or the other, like one is granulating, one is not. So really depending on what you want, you can find it in the colors, especially when the range of paints a company offers is about 240 colors. You're bound to find something you like in there. You know how Daniel Smith often releases these sheets that are like this artist's palette, and you have like many of them. There's one from Jane Blundell has one, Jean Haynes has one, Jane Davenport, to stay in the Janes, Joseph Bukvik, I'm sorry, I don't know how to say his name, but you know, all the big artists like Alvaro Castagnet, they all have this, like this small sheet that Daniel Smith has made, and there's like from what, 10 to 20 colors, like dots of this artist's palette. And it's interesting because you can see what they like, what are their favorite colors. And with a range like Daniel Smith, I mean, it's for sure that these artists can find like a selection of colors that they like to use, even if they usually go for other brands. This next color is Cobalt Turquoise, to stay in the turquoise colors. It is much easier to wet than other cobalts we've seen. Like, drastically easier to wet. It's kind of a slightly muted blue-green color that is granulating and semi-transparent. I'm trying to make the applications not too patchy. Okay, the last color is another Primatek. It is Sleeping Beauty Turquoise Genuine. It is a very beautiful color. It's kind of a pricey paint though, because it is like a Series 5. So you end up shelling a lot of money for this color. Oh, Peko likes Sleeping Beauty Turquoise Genuine. Ooh. It's the return of the furry collaborator. Peko is back. Okay, we are back at the top again with Amazonite Genuine. So we'll be able to see how different it is from the cobalt teal color. In my opinion, if you really want to get like some Primatek colors, this one is a good one to consider because the color is really nice. And it is much easier to use in a painting because it's not like weird. It doesn't have sparkles, it's not too much granulation. It is transparent. So adding it into your palette brings this lovely hue in your selection, but it doesn't bring any other like complex element. It's a very nice color, in my opinion. After that we have another Primatek. You can see I've marked all the Primatek colors with kind of a star, but depending on the color it gets drowned down in the in the color itself. So yeah, next one is Blue Apatite Genuine. There is two Apatite Primatek colors. You have a blue apatite and a green apatite. These are, if I remember correctly, quite granulating. Like the sheet says if a color is granulating or not, but the way they label it is it's going to be granulating to varying degrees. So something can be lightly granulating and it's going to be labeled the same way as something that is heavily granulating. I think the apatite colors are decently granulating. Okay, next one is also a granulating color. It is Lunar Blue. Lunar Blue and Lunar Violet. It's not on this sheet, so I wonder if we'll have it at some point. But anyway, Lunar Blue and Lunar Violet are basically the Mars Black pigment mixed with transparent pigment like phthalo blue for Lunar Blue. So it makes for a paint that is super nicely granulating, but you get kind of a blue color underneath the granulation. The next color is also a proprietary mix of Daniel Smith. It is Cascade Green. which is a mix of two pigments. I don't remember which though, but it makes for a green color that has really nice blue undertones. I try to make these like super juicy because it is the water that creates the effect and the granulation. So if I want you guys to see how the paint like separates, I need to make this really juicy. Hopefully that will be showing properly. Okay, next one is another Primatic color. This is Jadeite Genuine. There's quite a few super intense greens in the Primatic color, in the Primatic range, I'm sorry. So you have Jadeite, there is Diopside and Serpentine. I have tried making a paint with some like semi-precious or precious pigments, but that didn't quite work out. Like I got some garnet pigments, but it was way too coarse to make anything out of it, and it's kind of a hard stone garnet, so I can't really grind it finer myself. Like I don't have any tools that are strong enough to grind it finer. I tried to do some jade paint, but the pigment for jade is sort of more gray than green. So that did not quite pan out either. So I decided that I would like take a break from making things with stones and focus more on actual known pigments, you know, like the earth pigments that are much easier to work. Next color here is Viridian. It is the genuine thing, not the hue, so it is a bit harder to wet. Miss? I have some cat issues. Okay, next one is yet another Primatic color. This is Diopside Genuine. I don't have much to say about Diopside Genuine, I'm sorry, but as you can see, it's already pretty different than the Jadeite, so even if there are many greens in the Primatic range, there is not really like overlap in the way the colors look, which is great. Our next color is Phthalo Green Blue shade, another one of those colors that is in almost every set. It is an inexpensive, super intense. Oh, so now I have two cats. Scout is here as well. I think she approves of Phthalo Green Blue shade. She just gave me a head boink. Okay, our next color is Prussian green. So we had Prussian blue, and now this is Prussian green. I really, really wish Daniel Smith would print the pigments on this sheet. Might make for a lot of information, but it wouldn't be like useless. It would be quite useful to have all this pigment info on the same sheets as the colors and the series and the code and all the transparency and what is it? It's staining, light fastness, granulation, and transparency ratings. If you hear any weird noises in the background, it is a cat. Okay, so our next and final color for this row is Terre Verte, green earth, but they called it the French way, so Terre Verte. It is usually a difficult to re-wet color, requires a bit more work, but I will try not to get too much pilling from the paper in the color. This is a very natural looking green color. It is fairly muted, so it's not like bright and in your face, but it is granulating and natural, so it makes for really nice effects when you paint something a bit more like a landscape or something a bit more homey. I quite like this color, and I think this is a very nice version of it. I keep this one in the tube, and only when I need it do I pour some on my palette, so I don't have to struggle with scrubbing at the paint dot or the paint in my palette to get it too wet. Our next color is Cobalt Green Pale. So we had Cobalt Turquoise here, we have Cobalt Green Pale here, and we had Cobalt Blue over here. And there is Cobalt Green there, so we can kind of see the range of the cobalt colors on this sheet, which is pretty interesting. Okay. I hope it won't be too difficult to re-wet. I think I might be a bit add a drop on the Cobalt Green straight away, so I don't have to struggle with it too much. Okay, so this one is impossibly hard to re-wet. I'm gonna just leave it as is. We're gonna skip to and move to Spring Green. This one here. It's a color that, for some reason, I have no recollection of having ever heard of it. It is it's a series 3, so kind of an expensive one. Seems to be fairly opaque. Yeah, it's semi-transparent. It's probably a mix of colors, because I don't think there is a single pigment that is that color. It's a nice color, but why is it a series 3? What's so special about it? After that we have Permanent Green Light. That's bright. It's really, really bright. There's a few cat hairs in my in my everything water brush rag. So I am sorry if you see me like fiddle with the color. It's because there is some kind of cat hair that I am trying to remove. Okay, that is very bright. It's a bit like the colors of, you know, new foliage in the spring. Okay, I will still let my cobalt sit for a bit, so we're gonna move on to phthalo yellow-green. And that's even brighter. These colors, they're all fairly similar, but there's always something in the undertone or in the mass tone that is a bit different. Like, phthalo yellow-green is definitely more yellow than the permanent green light, but they are kind of similar still. So then we have permanent green. So we had the permanent green light here, and we have permanent green here. There was a bit of the paper that stayed stuck on my dot, so it doesn't at all impede me from picking up the color. Then we have phthalo green yellow shade. So we had the blue shade here, and the yellow shade is just here. It is a slightly pricier pigment than the phthalo blue, the blue shade. Phthalo green blue shade. So maybe that's why we don't often see this color in sets. But I would much prefer it to some of the sets I've seen. At least it's transparent, and you know you can mix it to get other colors without getting weird things going on. And it's a single pigment, so I am not super focused on getting single pigments, but when you want to do a mix, like some mixes end up having like 6 pigments, and I'm like, well, this is kind of a lot of pigments. If the color is nice, the color is nice. The number of pigment doesn't matter, but it just messes with my mind to think that there are so many pigments in that color. Okay, let's try the cobalt green pale. So instead of rewetting, the dot is separating from the paper. So I doubt I will be able to get much from this one, so I'm guessing that it's supposed to be a fairly light color. I have never really tried this one from Daniel Smith, so I don't have any ground for comparison. I have a very lovely cobalt green from M. Graham that I really like, but I don't think it is quite that shade. I am moving the dot around on the paper rather than picking up color. Okay, so just gonna leave this like that, and hopefully everything will dry fine. And then the cobalt green. Oh yeah, that's much juicier. Look at this. Yeah, nice. It's a very nice hue. It is definitely a semi-transparent color, and it is gonna be granulating a lot, I think, but I quite like this color. And if it was not Series 3, I would really consider getting it soon. But Series 3 are kind of pricey, so there. Okay, let's move on to where we were. Here we have Hooker's Green. So Hooker's Green, and then we're gonna have Sap Green, and then Serpentine Genuine. It's possibly my the language barrier that causes this, but every time I have to say Hooker's Green, there's always kind of a weird disconnect. you know, it's a bit like sap green. Like, it's fine, and sap is like tree sap, I guess, or you know, I don't exactly know what kind of sap it refers to. But in French it's verre de vessie, and vessie is like bladder. So I am not, perhaps I should look into the history of these names, but like the sap green is like bladder green, or I don't know, and hooker's green, I mean hooker, so there's always kind of a weird disconnect when I talk about colors to someone who is not familiar with color names and all that, and I'm like, well, yeah, you know, you have hooker's green, and it's still hooker's green, it's like, is it verre de hooker? Anyway, so it's kind of funny, like if I speak in English I got hooker's green, and if I speak in French I got the bladder green, sap green, verre de vessie, so there's always something a bit off when speaking greens to someone else that is not familiar with colors. This sap green used to be like the most amazing mix of quinacridone gold and tallow green blue shade, and it was really a unique, super bright, super transparent color. So they had to switch the quinacridone gold to their quinacridone gold hue, which is, you know, it's fine, it's a nice color still, but if you speak to someone who relied heavily on the previous recipe, like Denise, you will hear the sadness in their voice when they mention the fact that it's no longer the formula for this color. It is a super nice color. I still don't see why it's called like bladder green in French, but perhaps like the vessie means something else. Then, like, it has two meanings. It can either be bladder and something else that I don't know. I hope that's the case, because that's just kind of a weird name to give to a color. But yeah. Basically, while I'm doing this, I'm picking up on so many points I should research, and I hope I won't forget too many of them. But yeah, that's kind of funny. Okay, last one for this column is Serpentine Genuine. As far as I can tell, it is... Oh no, there is still Green Apatite, but it's one of the, you know, those super nice chromatic greens. It's a bit difficult to wet, so perhaps I should let it sit for a couple of seconds with some water and move on to the next color, which I know should be super easy to wet because it is Chromium Oxide Green. So this color doesn't get a lot of love. Sorry, this color doesn't get a lot of love. A lot of people find it resembles some bodily fluids, and I am not familiar with anything being that color, so I don't know for sure, but it's a color that I really didn't think much of before I started making my own. And through making my own, I realized that it's, even if it's opaque, even if it's kind of a muted and dull color, it's the actual color of a lot of things. Like when you have grass that is, you know, a bit dry and a bit yellow, the green color of the grass is much closer to this color than anything else. So I found myself going for this color in my handmade paint set quite often. So that got me curious about this chromium green color, and I realized that I quite like it, even if it has shortcomings and it's not like super bright and intense, but it has a super nice granulation, and the fact that it's opaque can be an advantage in some situation, and it's a very natural color. Like, especially if you don't live somewhere that is super nice and bright and sunny and all that. Like around here in the summer, sure, you have super bright green grass, but you also have this color of grass that is quite common. Okay, enough about this. Let's try the Serpentine Genuine again. This one here. There's another tip for you if you like Primatech colors but find them a bit pricey, like this Serpentine is Series 4. That's kind of intense. Look at the what do they call it? The watercolor sticks. Yeah, the watercolor sticks that Daniel Smith has. There are a few Primatech colors in there, like I think Sodalite is one. Then you have Serpentine and you have Piemontite. And there's probably a few more, but in the case of Serpentine and at least Sodalite from this page, the stick is going to be less expensive than the tube, and with the sticks you can cut it in thirds and that will fit into a full pan. And if you cut it in sixths, then that's going to be a half pan. So you get sort of your half pan or your pan of paint already dry, ready to use, and at a sort of a better price than if you get the tube. So that's how I tried these colors first. I was looking at the sticks and I was looking at the tube, and I realized that the sticks are all the same price, while the tubes have a lot of variation in price, so you can get a few colors in sticks to try, and it's going to be less expensive than getting them in tubes. I think Cobalt Teal is one of them too. It's going to be maybe slightly less expensive in a stick than it's going to be in a tube. So that's our Serpentine Genuine, like a much yellower color. So you have Serpentine here. I hope I'm in frame. Serpentine here. Yep. And then you have okay, Jadeite is here. So that's another one of those Primatech greens. Diopside is here. And I am missing one. Oh yeah, the green apatite is going to be here. So that's the next one. I would love to see some kind of featurette about how they make the Primatech paints. Daniel Smith doesn't, I don't find they interact a lot with the public. Like, I see Schminke and Golden, they all often post like videos where they show like some new color or some process or, you know, something fun on YouTube, but I can't think if I've seen the same thing about Daniel Smith. I think it would be fun to see them take perhaps one of these colors and process it from the stone into the paint. Alright, then we have Rare Green Earth. We had Terre Verte, Green Earth over here, but there we have Rare Green Earth. I don't know why one is in French and the other one is not. This is almost more like a gray color. A gray color than a green color. It is very faded. Not faded, sorry, muted. I keep having like, I think it's from this towel being a bit older, but I keep having like hairs in my swatches. It's kind of annoying. Next color is Deep Sap Green. So I've put my finger into the Serpentine. This one really reminds me of the color of evergreens, or the color that is often associated with evergreens, because there's always this thing when you think something is a color and you look at the actual thing and it's not exactly the color you thought. But yeah. The next one is Perylene Green. I know it's not of much relevance to anything, but it's kind of funny that perylene green is the super dark green, but it's made with a pigment that has been sorted into the black pigments. Oh, I think Pico appreciates perylene green. Or not. Did she leave? I think she left, so she does not appreciate perylene green. Next color is another one of those colors that are sort of proprietary to Daniel Smith. It is undersea green. I keep putting my fingers into the serpentine genuine. But yeah, this undersea green was once made with quinacridone gold and ultramarine, I think. But yeah, they had to switch that around since quinacridone gold is no longer produced. Like, they stopped making the pigments, because I think that if it only was on them and on the fact that people really love this color, they would keep making it. Like, the only thing that has them stop making it is the fact that the pigment is no longer made anywhere. You may be able to find some remnants of, you know, pigment stock on some sites, but I don't think that's anywhere near enough for a company like Daniel Smith. And it is one of their, like, colors that a lot of people like, so it has to be one of the bestseller. I can't, or was one of the bestseller. I can't really think of another color that is sort of that known by name, if you understand what I mean by that. Our next color over here is Zoisite Genuine. Really not sure how to say this, but it is another Primatech color. It is supposed to be granulating and semi-transparent. Looks kind of like more like a gray color than green. It's like a gray with the hint of green. Then we have olive green. Olive green. Maybe this brush is a bit too rough for the paper, to scrub the paper, but it's not very, it's kind of a soft brush. Not the softest, but still. Okay, so olive green. It is definitely a semi-transparent color. It is supposed to be granulating as well, to some extent. So we'll try to make this one also very juicy so we can see the kind of granulation we get with this color. Then we have two colors that have fairly similar names, and a part of me kind of wish they had swapped the names around, because what they call green gold is a mix of multiple pigments, and what they call rich green gold is the single pigment color, and usually the single pigment color is the one that has the name green gold. So they sort of swapped the names, and I find that a bit confusing. And also, the actual rich green gold, it's a color I really like. It's the Azo yellow. No, it's Azo green, sorry. It's Azo green. So I really like this color, but I realized that my local store, which has Daniel Smith, doesn't have that specific color. Like, there's a few colors like that they don't stock. I don't think they had lemon yellow, and I don't think they definitely don't have rich green gold. So it's one of the few colors I had to order from, I think I ordered it from Jackson's and paid a bit more for it, but it was like the easiest way for me to get it. And like what I paid more on the tube, I save on the shipping, because Jackson's has a really international buyer-friendly shipping. So yeah, I have this color in other brands, but you know how it is. I don't have many palettes that mix brands, so I don't have like huge palettes of everything, but my Daniel Smith palette is the biggest one, and I really wanted this color in it, so eventually I got it. It's a kind of a, it's a super intense color, but it's not like, I don't know how exactly to say. It is intense and bright, but it's still sort of a doled out color in kind of a yellow green, but it's a super nice color. So yeah, I am not sure why swapping the names. I mean, this one could have easily been Rich Green Gold, I think, and this one Green Gold. I don't know. I have no idea. If someone knows, feel free to let me know in the comments. I am back with this swatch sheet completely dry by now, so I will be removing the tape and we can take a look at the colors that are fully dry now. I think overall, and so far, this page was the one with the most granulating colors. There's a lot of them actually. There was a lot of Primatech colors as well. It's kind of a lengthy process to remove all the tape. It was a lengthy process to put down all the tape as well, but it really makes for a nice presentation when it's done with. And that way I am sure that none of my colors will bleed into the next one. I could possibly do this with masking fluid as well. I don't think that would be a problem, but it could be a lengthier process to get regular lines all over the thing. Though it's possibly easiest to remove after that, because you can just grab one corner of the masking fluid and peel it off. I think it's not so bad if I pull 2 lines of tape at the same time. I'm excited to show some of these colors up close because there are some granulation effects that are really super nice, like the moon glow and the shadow violet and the cascade green. I've noticed that they are really great, so I hope that there will be more interesting colors in this lot. And the last one. I will put this way just for now. Try to fit everything in one picture, so there. At a glance, this is the second page of dots from Daniel Smith, so I've placed my swatches exactly in the same order as the dots. So there's a lot of granulation, like these two are granulating. There's a bit of granulation going on with these, and with the ultramarines as well, and the Verditor Blue, Smalt Genuine, Lapis Lazuli Genuine, and Sodalite have granulation. Million Blue seems to have some of it. Cerulean Blue, the other Cerulean Blue, the Manganese Blue. Hello! I have a visitor! The Cobalt Blue, Cobalt Teal Blue, because we have a Cobalt Blue somewhere in there. Hold on. This is my spunky visitor. Scout! She's just not really happy, and I cannot flip this one around. She doesn't like to be flipped around. So if you hear some scratchy noises, that's the culprit. Okay, so where was I? Granulation in the cobalt turquoise. Not so much in the ultramarine turquoise. Sorry, but yeah. Terre Verte has some of it. You can see some nice separation of color here in the diopside genuine. Viridian has a bit of granulation. This is jadeite. It has a bit of granulation. Nice separation in these two. Bit of granulation here. Granulation. Maybe a... No, not really. You have some here with... I think it's granulation, but there is some texture in the olive green. The zoisite has a lot of it. Undersea green has a bit of it, and you know, these are granulating. So I will zoom in, and we can take a look at these. Just before I zoom, oh yeah, we can see, look at the sparkles in these two colors. So the Sugilite is the sparkliest I have on this sheet. Then the Kyanite is rather good as well. And then the Fuchsite has some really subtle glitter. And same for the Amethyst. It's not that obvious. Okay, let's zoom on this a bit. Okay, so I hope you can see, I think we can see rather well, but see the way these colors, this is the Lapis Lazuli Genuine, which was a bit sad. Here you can see the difference between Moonglow and Shadow Violet. I know that some people were curious about this, so I do believe that my swatches, they present the difference nicely. They are similar color, but the Moonglow has a bit more purple or pink in it, while the Shadow Violet has kind of more of a peachy tone to it. So there's a good difference between these two. And you have like the sparkles in these colors. The Fuchsite has a bit of sparkle too, but it's more subtle than the Sugilite. I go back at the top. So you can see this, like the Amazonite here. And oh, yeah, here we have the Lunar Blue, and you can see how it's like a blue undertone and kind of a darker granulation on top. That would be the black pigment. Sorry, the black pigment. And Cascade Green, it's pretty thick here, but like there's this very obvious green color and this bluer tone underneath. I don't know, I will go back up a bit, but there's a really interesting granulation in the green apatite. It's like brown and green undertone, so it's really nice. They call it undersea green, but it's really more like a brown shade. It's not as green as other greens I've seen. So that's it for the second sheet of colors. It is definitely a page of granulating colors. I'm excited to see if the page with all the brown colors is gonna be as granulating, but we all saw that the first page with the yellows and reds and pinks wasn't as granulating as this. So that's it for my swatching of the second page of the Daniel Smith 238 colors chart. Let me know if you have any comments and questions, and I will address them as possible and adjust for the next videos. So thank you very much for your feedback on the last one, that was really helpful, and we will see each other on the next swatching video. Bye bye!